And a special update for summer 2025. We're celebrating the successful transfer of our supporter community from Patreon to our own website. All the benefits stay the same, but now everything you pledge comes directly to us. This is a huge step, and to celebrate, we're offering 20% off our annual memberships for the whole of June 2025. Our annual membership is already discounted. This offer doubles our standard discount from 10% to 20%. Head to ancestralkitchenpodcast.com/join, choose the yearly option and enter the code JUNE20, JUNE20 at the checkout. Did you know we have a thriving global community of like-minded ancestral home cooks and homesteaders? Every day on our Discord forum, we are discussing what we're cooking, what we're growing, what we're thinking about, what our latest struggles are, and supporting each other to fully embrace this beautiful lifestyle. As a patron member, you can also choose to access an extra private podcast feed, which includes monthly intimate chats where Andrea and I talk in depth about what's happening in our lives and kitchens. There are over 90 recordings waiting for you there right now. In addition, we've got a massive collection of inspiring and helpful downloads for you, including many recipes and videos. And once a month, you'll get to visit with myself, Andrea, and the community as we come together live and in person. Visit ancestralkitchenpodcast.com for all the details on how to join us. Come be part of our world and change yours.
Traveling and vacation is so much fun until you get the bill for all the meals you ate out and you get the tummy ache for all those weird ingredients your body just didn't like. If you have allergies and food sensitivities, it's even more difficult. Finding somewhere safe to eat is just about impossible. Allison and I both have found that when we travel, we just do better if we bring a lot of our own food with us. In this episode, we are going to talk about our best tips for preparing, what foods we bring, how to pack tools and what tools to bring, how to keep food cold on the trip, and just some of the things we have learned traveling over the years, traveling with kids and with food and with special diet considerations. This episode is a really fun one for getting ready for big trips, but it's also great for just thinking about going out and about for the day if you're looking for ideas, things to take on picnics, to go just for an afternoon out. I also included in the beginning of this episode 7 tips from my dad, who travels to homes and does catastrophic damage restoration for water, fire, and mold. He has some great tips for travelers to set you on your way safely and come home to a happy and safe home. Those tips are available also for download for all listeners, which you can get at ancestralkitchenpodcast.com/downloads. And for supporters of the podcast, there is an additional download as well. You'll get my menu from our most recent week-long trip with 6 people as a free PDF download when you are a supporter of the podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Welcome to the Ancestral Kitchen Podcast.
I'm Alison, a European town dweller living in England.
And I'm Andrea, living on a family farm in Northwest Washington State, USA.
Pull up a chair at the table and join us as we talk about eating, cooking, and living with ancestral food wisdom in a modern world kitchen.
Hello, Alison. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good morning to you. It's rainy and horrible here today, I'm guessing, because I saw you had a blanket round you, so I'm guessing it's not very warm there either.
No, it's pretty chilly, but that's normal for this time of year here, and it will actually warm up quite a bit. So it'll be up to 70 Fahrenheit this week. Oh, what would that be for you? Like, I have no idea.
Not warm enough, I think.
Not warm enough?
That's the answer to that question.
Warm enough that you can go outside and,
good.
Lay out in the sun a little bit. And
yeah.
But it's always cold down here, so.
Yeah. And because we either record really early your time. So usually it's dark where you are, light where I am. But then in winter, it's dark where you are and dark where I am. People have often said to us, why don't you go on YouTube? And I think, well, you wouldn't actually be able to see us unless we got thousands of pounds worth of lighting equipment and a sort of a studio, and also we're in the corner rooms, in some studio set up, so we looked really kind of snazzy. Otherwise, you just have this kind of
maybe people
pair of
want to
eyes
see
in the dark.
your like half the face by flickering candlelight.
Yeah, exactly.
In the dark. Maybe they like that vibe, like that. As we talk about, what's your summer menu?
Yeah.
Oh
it's
dear.
cold here. So have you had some breakfast this morning or not?
I did have a little bite of breakfast, and it was actually what I had for dinner last night because it was convenient and it was already made.
Fun.
And that was just a spelt pizza.
Ooh,
Piece of
just a spelt pizza. A spelt pizza is never just a spelt pizza now, is it?
Simply a spelt pizza.
Dave all likes to have our leftover spelt pizza for breakfast in the morning. We usually have one slice left. And he
perfect.
always bagsies it for breakfast.
Yep.
So I think it's a good food. Bagsy. Do you not say that?
Nope.
No,
that I know
like
of.
when you're like when there's something left that you want or something that you want, you can say, "Oh, I bagsy that." Means
We would say, or at least a phrase that I've used or heard is, "I've got dibs on that." Is what we'd say.
Oh, I think I've heard that, but maybe I've only heard that from films and stuff.
Yeah.
Dibs
American
on it.
Slang.
We say first dibs. I think we say first dibs on it, which means I've got the first call,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, is dibs, that feels like it should come from some Latin word or something, like...
Debobulation or some sort of... etymology goes backwards. Dibitum or something. Maybe.
Who knows?
I don't know. Anyway, I have had some lunch. Would you like to hear what I had?
I do want to hear, because I bet it was more interesting than my breakfast.
Well, it was leftovers. So it's kind of like yours, in a way. Yesterday we cooked some ground beef mince in English, from Albert, our farmer. And I'm trying to think what was in it. Onions, mushrooms, garlic, and then the mince, and, the greens from beetroot. Bought some new beetroot and obviously got the beetroot, but the greens were in a nice state as well. So I chopped those up, put them in with it. Some stock, some herbs, some tomato paste. I think that's about it. And had it fresh yesterday. And then leftovers today, so I just heated it up with a bit more stock. And we have a rice sourdough bread, which I spread with the fat left over from cooking some sausages a couple of days ago. And the boys had sauerkraut as well. And yeah, it was very, very nice. And, I made chocolate for the first time in the UK since I've been back in the UK. So I've so missed my own chocolate. And we finished all the cacao beans in Italy because I don't want to be carrying, 10 kilos of cacao beans back from Italy to the UK. And I just haven't got round to buying any here, mainly because it's a different supplier, because we're not, on continental Europe anymore. And also because buying cacao beans in bulk costs quite a lot of money. And I was just like, can't quite do it this month. But then for my birthday, Rob bought me a kilo of cacao beans. So
that's a good
I made
birthday
chocolate
present.
with them last night. And I had a chocolate as well, which had a hazelnut inside. I put some hazelnuts in the mould, poured the chocolate in it, and they were just about set. So one of those too. It was lovely.
Oh, that sounds really good.
Yeah, it was really, really nice. So we are in June, believe it or not, as you're listening to this, if you're listening to this as it's just come out. And what we do need to mention to you is that our supporter community, which was previously on Patreon, is now successfully on our website, being managed by us and looked after by us and supported by us and all the other things by us, which is a wonderful move because it means that we're in control, and if something goes wrong, we don't have to ask Patreon for support, which kind of never materialised.
You mean
really.
wait in the ether forever?
Exactly.
No help.
Send a support request, and that's the end of that. Then,
and then just have Rob try to figure it out, anyways.
So now Rob's unfortunately figuring it out, but that's a much better route.
Yeah, but he has the power there.
Patreon.
He can fix things and write new things, and as he did,
and it means we can have
Tilsha,
it work the way we want. And it also means that all of the money that our supporters pledge to us, our generous supporters pledge to us, comes into what we're doing. So all of it can help pay for the costs that we have to keep this going, which is wonderful, really wonderful.
It is.
So in order to celebrate that this is happening for June, this month, June 2025, we're offering a discount, which is 20% off our yearly memberships. So when you join, you can join monthly and pay monthly, or if you like, usually for a 10% discount, you can join for a year. So you pay everything up front and then you don't have to worry about any more money coming out or doing anything else for a whole year. You get all of the benefits for a year. And both of those options, monthly and yearly, are available on all of our levels. So we have 4 levels. We have a sponsorship level, which means you get access to the Discord forum and support us. That's $5. We have companionship, which is our most popular level, which is $12 a month. And there you get not only access to the Discord forum and support us, but you also get a big stash of PDF downloads, recipes, helpful cheat sheets and things, plus access to our private podcast, which comes out once a month, and the after shows that we record. You often hear us talk about after shows. You get that as a companion, the companionship level. Then we have our stewardship level, which is for those who have more money to send our way, and that's $50 a month. And then we have a mentorship level, which we don't talk about very much. That's $120 a month. And with that, you have basically access to Andrea and I once a month on a one-to-one call, along with lots of other benefits like money off courses, money off going and staying with Andrea, lots of other things. And all of the 20% yearly discount that we've got for June is available on all of those levels. So you can go onto our site. The website is now ancestralkitchenpodcast.com/join. And that will tell you everything you need to know, answer your questions, and you can sign up from there. The code that you need to use to get 20% off in June on a yearly membership at any level is June20, so JUNE20, and that will give you 20% off rather than the standard 10% off. And you'll come and join us for a year, which would be wonderful. We are so grateful, and we feel so connected to everyone who comes and joins us, whether they, just interact a little bit or they interact a lot. It's wonderful to feel you all kind of around us, and having watched this whole community kind of grown up since we started this. Andrew, do you want to add something to that?
No, I think that you covered all the details. It's really fun and super, super grateful for everybody who's already switched over and everybody who's been a patron all along, because that is how we were able to fund building and writing everything Rob needed to do for this. So it's very, very awesome having all the participation.
Thank you, supporters. We really appreciate it. We have a review here. Do you want me to read it, Andrea, or do you want to read it?
Yeah, I want you to read it.
Okay, so this is a 5-star review. You can leave us a 5-star review on Apple if you're on Apple. And it's always nice if you type something in as well and let us know, why particularly you like us or how you found us or what we've helped you with. This is from earlier in the year, and it's from someone called M258. It says, as I've learnt more about ancestral cooking and nutrition, this podcast has been a great source of information, and Alison and Andrea truly are delightful to listen to. Thank you.
Oh, so kind.
That's very kind.
Thank you for that.
Taking the time to do that makes a difference to us. It really does. There is one other kind of housekeeping thing I want to talk about. Which is, if listeners have heard our last few episodes, they will know that we did a giveaway for 3 months supply of liver capsules with One Earth Health, who are one of our sponsors. And a lovely lady called Serena in the States won that. So there are 3 bottles of One Earth Health's liver capsules going to her. Do remember that you have a discount available if you want to buy supplements. There's not just liver, there's kidney, there's heart, there's mixed supplements on the One Earth Health website. If you either go to our website, there's a section there that is called Support Us, and you can find the links there. If you go to our show notes, there's a link in the show notes to One Earth Health site, and that link will give you a discount on your purchase. So
Wonderful.
Well done, Serena. And thank you, One Earth Health, definitely.
Wow. Look at that.
Okay. So what are we talking about today, Andrea?
Well, today I wanted to talk about travel food. You and I have both alluded to packing food when we travel or cooking when we travel, and I do get asked about this quite a bit, so I thought the time was ripe for us to sit down and talk about what we actually pack, what we actually make, all of that. So, how do you feel about that?
That's good. And I think that you have prepared some special files, which will be in our library for supporters. Can you just let them know what those are?
Yeah. So right off the bat, I'm going to start with some traveler PSAs from my dad, actually. And he actually wrote a document for this episode. I called him and asked him if he would just give us some tips. And then he said, oh, I'll write you a whole... I was like, okay. So he made a whole document. And that is available for everybody in the downloads section of our website. Okay. So it's ancestralkitchenpodcast.com/downloads. And then there's also a document which is an extra thank you for supporters, which I put the menu that I had made for our last trip. I just turned it into a PDF and put that in the download section, so you can so people can see those.
Wonderful. Okay, I shall let you get on with it then.
Yeah. And the food that I'll be talking about is more specific to road trips and hotels and camping, things like that. It's probably, well, some of it would still apply to flying. Allison, the tips you have are more, I would say, would work better with flying because you've got the smaller situation. And then, like you said, Rob has to carry everything. So, whereas we were able to pack things into the back of a car, so we didn't have quite so much of a concern for weight. But we're kind of going to cover the spectrum of traveling, I think, during this. So,
okay.
All right, let's go to an ad break and then come back and start with travel tips.
If you're into ancestral eating, you'll know that liver is a superfood, full of vitamin A, K, and a whole host of B vitamins, plus many essential minerals. It has an exceptional nutrient profile and is a staple of traditional healthy diets. But it's not always easy to consistently get liver into our lives. Finding a good supply, cooking it so it actually tastes good, and getting all of our family to eat it. These things can be hard, especially when we're busy or travelling. That's where Andrew and I turn to liver capsules. They give us all the benefits of liver without having to worry about the sourcing, the preparation, or the eating. One Earth Health produces organ capsules from 100% grass-fed New Zealand-raised cattle. As a podcast listener, you can get 15% off your first order and 5% off subsequent orders by using the link in our show notes. And each time you order, you'll also be supporting us to continue making this podcast.
So the reason why I have travel tips from my dad is because, well, one, if we wanted some travel tips, he's traveled quite a lot. He's been to more countries than I can name, and he's very serious about taking all of me and my 7 siblings. He took us all to all 48 of the lower U.S. states by RV. So we traveled quite a bit in that fashion. And he had successfully taken us to all of the states, some of them many times. And then 7 years later, he and my mom had another baby, and they said, I guess we've got to start over. So they did. They did all of them again.
Oh my gosh.
So it's pretty remarkable. But my dad now owns a PuroClean franchise, which if anybody in the U.S. is familiar with that, they do mold, fire, and water damage restoration projects. So they'll come into homes and business places and even travel to locations where there were catastrophes. And they, if your home floods with water, for instance, there's things you can do to repair the home. I've, in fact, even seen them take a house that was saturated and without ripping out walls or anything, completely restore it, so that it doesn't mold. It's just remarkable what they can do with their technology and their tools and all of that. But one thing my dad started telling everybody when he was doing this job was, he said, when you travel, do these things, please, because a lot of the homes he goes to were homes of people who were on a trip and they came home, and for 3 weeks, water had been pouring from the third floor all the way down through the house and things like that. And that's just real devastating to return to. A real problem. So he made a list of 7 tips, and he also had more detailed explanation as to why each of these tips he wrote. And I'm not going to read all of the detailed explanation on air, but it is all in the document you can download.
Okay.
So the first thing, which he says all the time, is turn off your water supply if you're going to be gone for over a day. Even just for 24 hours, he says to turn it off, overnight or longer. He said you can get a water key. I don't know how this works in the UK, but in the US, you can get a water key to turn off your water supply near the street if you don't have a shut off in your garage. And he said these are very cheap, and he's even given them out to people.
Yeah, I know. So in the UK, usually we can turn off our water under the sink. But
true.
as I learnt the hard way, we don't have that available in our house. As we learnt when a tap came apart and we couldn't turn the water off. So you have to get a universal stopcock, which you can then go outside and put it into the water thing outside. So I went and bought one from a plumbing supplier about 2 months ago. I think it cost £30 or £25. It's the same thing, I
That
presume.
would be where he would be recommending you to turn it off if you were leaving.
Yeah.
Was outside.
Yeah.
So that it wasn't in the house.
Yeah.
Because there's various places a pipe can fail. And he said, as an example, a broken toilet supply line, if, just something happened to the toilet, it's pumping out 2 to 3 gallons per minute. And if you imagine that, 60 gallons an hour.
Oh my gosh.
And then multiply that by a day. Yeah, not only the water bill, but then your floors and all your furniture. And he said in one day, a broken toilet supply line can dump over 3,000 gallons of water into your house. So it doesn't, you can picture a water main bursting or something, but just a broken toilet supply line can cause such devastation. So he had some more great tips on that, and those are all in the document. So please do download it and save yourself a lot of money right there. He said, keep your heat set to 60 degrees. That's tip number 2. And the reason was, he said, a lot of people turn the heat off or way low when they're gone, and then the mold begins to grow very quickly because the temperature goes down, relative humidity goes up, and the mold begins to proliferate. And that is something we don't want. Number 3 is vinyl framed double-paned windows are preferred. And this is, again, preventing moisture and sweating inside of the windows. He said number 4, in basements, have luxury vinyl plank flooring. And I'm guessing that as somebody who has replaced or had to rip out flooring many times, this is part of why he said that. He said number 5, do not stack or store cardboard boxes. They just light up like tinder, which is what they are, and they burn very hot and very fast, and that's also a huge problem.
Yeah,
and
I've seen putting those on my stove. I know how fast it goes up.
Whoops. Yeah, he said 6. Oh, you mean in the wood stove?
Yeah, I mean in the wood stove. I mean just putting one of those on. I think if you've got tens of those in a space somewhere, then that's going to be huge. Yeah.
I think I read somewhere when I was reading about houses and fires and stats and things, they said in under 5 minutes the house can be engulfed, and so it doesn't take long. We picture having all kinds of time, but there's no time.
Yeah.
Number 6, he said, check the warranty date on your hot water heater. If they fail, they just leak all over, and that's also a huge problem. He said, check the warranty date and replace it before you hit the warranty. And then a bonus tip that he threw in, because this is something that he's seen hurt people deeply, is check your insurance policy and talk to your agent about your coverage. And he said 2 out of the 3 catastrophic fire jobs they go on, the homeowner is underinsured, so they don't have enough coverage to rebuild their home. And he said, make sure you have guaranteed coverage, and you want the word guaranteed in the policy. And he said, policy limits, actual cost value, replacement cost value are not sufficient for catastrophic fire losses. You need guaranteed replacement language. And so what he was explaining to me that means is you say, I'm guaranteed that I can rebuild and recoup everything I lost. Otherwise, somebody starts coming in and estimating things and you might not actually get to rebuild your home. And we actually have a supporter who shared with all of us, if you remember, JC, when she joined, she talked about their house fire, and they had good coverage, and they actually came out okay. And that's a big difference between other really tragic situations I've known. I can think of 2 immediately off the top of my head where their house burned and they were out of the money. They just had a home no more and they had to start over. And that's quite a bit. So those are Traveler Tips and More by my dad, Bob Jordan. And I don't know if you know this, Allison, but my dad actually wrote a book. And
no, I didn't know.
I know. He's prolific. And it's called The Mitigation Handbook. And he uses it to train people to start their own PuroClean franchises. So there's all this technical information in it. And he sells it at themitigationhandbook.com, which I did put that link in the show notes.
Okay.
And he told me, well, if any of your listeners, wherever they live in the U.S., have any interest in starting a PuroClean, he can either start one where they're at and they can run it, or he can give them the book and they can start, or they can buy the book and he can give them some advice on starting it. But it is a great, it's a family business type thing, where the whole family can work it together. So it's a really great deal. And it's been awesome to see how much he's been able to help people with it. So, because you do come into their life in a very sad time.
Wow. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're showing up on their worst day, He said, when you go to people's houses and it's like flooded, you're coming into their like very high stress moments, and how you act with them can have a big impact on how they can recover, and emotionally it's a big problem. So super grateful that he made that document for us, because those things, I have just heard endless horrible stories from him of people who went on trips and something happened. So so go ahead and download that document before you go on your trip, and make it a priority to go through those items.
Listen to the man who knows, because he's seen it go wrong.
Yeah, true story. All right, so let's talk. What I did, Allison, was I kind of divided this into sections. So we'll take a few breaks here and there, but the first section I wanted to say was reasons to pack food for travel, and I actually want you to share your reasons why you pack food. I know your and my reasons are very similar, so I'm just going to have you share yours.
Yeah. Okay. So really, the first reason is cost, which is food costs so much more when you buy it out, and it has to be obviously edible. You can't go and buy necessarily ingredients. So because of the value add, it just costs the earth, absolutely the earth. And particularly when you're in travel situations like, airports or train stations or garages, they know that you're just sitting there and you can't really get any food anywhere else. So it costs 3 times as much. So cost is a huge reason. The second reason really is that just eating normal food makes us ill. Besides, the fact that Rob can't eat wheat and Gabriel can't eat eggs or potatoes, and I can't have any sugar. Besides that, even if you get foods without those things in, it's a minefield, and there's all these ingredients in them that you don't know what they are, and we always feel bad afterwards. And then compare that to our food, which costs a fraction and tastes amazing, far better than that food, and doesn't make us feel ill. There's no question. When we're traveling, we're often on a train where you can't really buy any food apart from, the little trolley that comes by with sort of chocolate bars on it, or on an airplane.
Chocolate frogs and birdie
yeah.
flavors.
You've been watching too much Harry Potter, haven't you? No, they sell more than chocolate frogs, but not much more. So you can't necessarily buy food there, and the choices on an airplane are pretty bad. So it's a no-brainer for us, cost, and because our food doesn't make us feel rubbish afterwards. So and I think they're similar for you, aren't they? Those reasons.
Yep. I'd vote the same. Also, I honestly find it so much more convenient, especially the more kids we have. If you're staying someplace and you have 4 kids, and then it's like, what are you going to all pack up and go out for dinner? Which we did do one night on our trip, and it was really fun because it was one time,
Yeah, but if you did it every day,
Yeah, the kids, they want to go swimming, they want to play on the beach or whatever, and then everybody has to get clean and put clean clothes on, and it's like, why would I do that to myself?
Yeah.
So let's talk then first about the tools. You're going to need some tools if you're kind of cooking. When I travel by road, which is typically the way that we are traveling, not always, but typically, then I try to make like as much of the food as prepared as possible so that I'm not, really cooking and cleaning. I'm more like assembling things and heating things. So the tools that I need then are reflected in that. They're more limited. And on different trips, I've kind of themed it differently. But when we went on this last trip, it was a week. We packed every single meal. We had 6 people. And in the hotel we were staying at had a mini kitchen, but everything we needed we could have done if it wouldn't have made any difference. All we would have needed was our 1-burner Coleman stove, which we do have, but we didn't have to bring it. So that was convenient. But the kitchen was essentially a sink and
I saw that
stove.
on the picture that you shared on Discord of the kitchen. It was a tiny thing, wasn't it?
You saw they had a microwave on the counter when we got there.
Use that as a cupboard then.
Shoved that in the closet. I just got it out of the way. I wanted the counter space and I knew we weren't going to use it. So we brought 3 coolers of food, which poor Rob, if he had to haul that.
He already has to haul too much stuff, let alone 3 coolers.
I understand. So we brought very few dishes, but we did bring a few. So before I say mine, Allison, then why don't you say, since you travel even lighter, what tools do you guys bring?
Yeah, so we don't really bring many tools. As you've explained, and listeners to the podcast for a while know, we don't have a car, and we really never travel by car at all. So we can't do what you did and carry 3 coolers with the meals. But despite the fact that we can't bring meals like that, our suitcases do always have a large percentage of food in. If you kind of take the shoes out and the clothes out, well, there's still a lot of food in there. We don't take so many clothes. And, the reason we can't take so much is because Rob has to carry it. And he has to carry everything, He has to carry all the suitcases.
It's good for him.
It is good for him. He's our snail carrying everything. Yeah, it keeps him moving and fit, And
I know that Rob seeks out physical adversity, so
he does.
I know he likes.
He does, and I feel like we're such a good team, basically, because I really can't carry anything because of my hypermobility in my shoulders, and so he really has been the carrier in our partnership. So in our case, really, we just have a few tools. I always take my knife with me, because I just like my knife, my little knife. I don't, just one knife. Exactly.
I've heard about Robin Hood. I know what you guys have out there.
Exactly. You never know. It'd be like a stagecoach thing going on the road. I wrap it, in some kitchen roll, and usually I put it in cardboard. And just because I like my knife. And you go to these places and you don't know what knife you're going to get, and it's probably going to be blunt, and you get used to the rhythm of your own knife.
It's literally like using someone else's shoes. It's not the greatest. I love it. And
I've never forgotten it. I've never left it in a place. I've still got the same knife. I always remember, because it's always there. It's always with me.
Yeah.
So because I always take it, I always remember to pack it and pack it at the other end as well. We take Rob's manual coffee grinder. He's got a coffee grinder that you turn the handle yourself, because he roasts his grains himself. And we will be having an episode on that soon.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait for that one. I've been waiting for this for years.
And he just can't really hack normal coffee that you get, from a coffee bar. Sometimes he can. He's a connoisseur on which one's this and which one's that. But we usually take beans that he's ground, so we take the manual coffee grinder, so he can grind them that morning. So he doesn't have to leave them, and they're not so flavoursome.
Does he roast them before the trip?
Yeah, he usually roasts them before the trip, batch them, takes them with us, and then every morning when he makes his coffee, he grinds it fresh and then makes it immediately. On my side, we take small sieves for loose tea, because I drink a lot of tea, and it's usually loose leaf. And so we've got these tiny sieves that just sit on the top of a mug, and then I'll do my tea and pour it through there. And we always take containers. You never have enough containers. We've got food in the case, which we'll talk about in a bit, what food I take. But no matter that I've got food in the case, which is in containers, we always need more containers. So I make sure that I've got containers with me. So that's it. Knife, coffee grinder, sieves and containers. I don't really take anything else other than those.
Oh, that's perfect.
How about you?
What does Rob brew the coffee in?
Whatever comes to hand. So often there's like a French press in the places that we stay. If there's not, he will do it in a cup and cover that cup while it's brewing, and then use my small sieve for the tea and pour that brew through my sieve into another mug. So that's kind of the emergency situation for brewing the coffee. But most often there's some sort of, cafetiere, as we would call it, in the place.
Okay. So we brought a French press. Actually, we called the hotel because I wanted to know what we would have and what I didn't need to bring. So they have a stainless steel French press. So that worked out for us. Okay. And Gary was actually planning to buy coffee there. There's a couple places down there where we were going that are kind of famous for their coffee beans, and he wanted to try them. I brought the flat cast iron skillet, kind of like a crepe type skillet.
Imagine if I asked Rob to carry that. Once, I have to tell you.
I love you, but...
Once, when we came back from Italy to the UK, way before Gabriel was born, we brought a juicer with us, like a proper single auger juicer, not like one of those light ones. Literally, so my case had a juicer inside it, wrapped in a coat, and it's heavy single auger juicer. I was just like, we brought a juicer back on the plane, we're crazy. Anyway, so the cast iron skillet, I think he's got too many trauma memories of carrying that juicer, so I can't bring up the cast iron skillet.
Somebody just says, do you want a juice? Don't talk to me about juice. Yeah. I don't want to hear about juice. Well, we brought a cast iron skillet because we didn't have to carry it. Yeah. And I brought I think you called it a fish slice, but it's like a tilted metal flipper. Each of the kids brought their own metal water bottle, and then I had a bigger one that Gary and I use. Like, we just both drink out of it. I brought a milk pan. I don't know what you guys call them. I call it a milk pan because that's a technical name, but nobody here knows what a milk pan is, so I don't know what it's called.
A small saucepan, you mean?
Tiny pan, yeah.
Yeah, with a lid or without a lid?
I did not bring the lid.
Because if you buy milk pans in Italy, you'd never get a lid. And I always want a lid, so I have to buy them from somewhere other than Italy. So we've got 2 small saucepans with lids, which I would call milk pans.
I've got all mine at, like, thrift stores or charity shops, as you call them. And I just find a lid. I just look. They usually have a pile of lids. I just find something that fits. Yeah. But all of mine have different lids. So I brought the baby's bottle because he drinks warmed raw milk, and a few kitchen utensils. I brought my whisk and I think I brought 2 tools, and I can't remember what the other one was. I didn't really do much cooking, as I said before. I was all prepped, and I forgot to bring a knife, Allison. I did have a knife on the list, and I forgot to bring it.
Rookie error.
I know. It actually came out okay. I also forgot to bring my apron. I thought about it and I thought, will I miss it that much? Yes, I missed it that much. I wish I had brought my apron. And I brought 2 kitchen towels for such a trip with so many kids and so many spilling things. I wish I had brought maybe 5.
You were away for a week, weren't you?
Yeah, it was a week.
Yeah.
And I kept like dabbing things up and hanging them. And I know hotels have towels, but I didn't really want to use those towels with my food. And then I also should have brought a pair of scissors, but I didn't. But that would have been very handy. So those are the things we brought.
Well, you just need to go on holiday again now, don't you?
Yeah,
So
I just need to try this again.
Even better next time. More beach, please.
I'll go listen to this podcast episode and remember everything I forgot.
There we go.
Okay, so for the next section, special treats.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about special treats. So because we were bringing all of our food, we knew we actually planned to be able to enjoy a couple things that the area was kind of famous for. Like Gary got the coffee and just things that, if we were buying all of our meals out, we'd probably have said, I don't want to spend money on this expensive, high-end locavore version of something. But because we weren't buying our meals out, we were able to plan for that. So if you're going somewhere that's famous for something or known for something, you can build that into your menu. So Allison, when you eat out, do you ever go to special places?
I would say not normally when we travel. So usually when we travel, we go into a new place where we haven't been before. And if that's the case, we don't know what the food's going to be like. And it could be terrible. And I hate the experience, which I've had more than once, of spending a lot of money on a meal and it just being rubbish, or feeling terrible afterwards, and spending the next day recovering and feeling like I've got a hangover. So if we don't know that something's kind of particularly nice, we don't. And we often spend a lot of money on our trips. So then we just we spent the money on this experience, on being together and on taking the time out. And therefore we don't really have much money to eat out. I think if I went back to Florence as a visitor, I would definitely go to our favourite restaurant there because I know Florence, and there's a restaurant called Divina Pizza in Florence, which does ancient grain, long ferments and amazing toppings. Just the best pizza. If anyone ever goes to Florence in Italy, you have to go to the little restaurant Divina Pizza, which is just out the centre. And if I went back there, I would go to Divina Pizza because I love it and all of us love their food. But that's because I know it. Otherwise, we don't usually eat out, I'd say.
Yeah, it's tough when you don't know the place. The advantage we had here was that we've both been there multiple times.
Right,
and
okay.
We actually went there on our honeymoon, so we kind of knew some places.
Yeah.
And Gary grew up camping there his whole life, and I'd camped there many times as a kid also. So I will say when I camped there, I had never eaten out anywhere because we never ate out when we were camping as a kid.
Yeah.
But we also our neighbors who live on our street had moved there a couple of years ago. So, and they like a lot of the same things we do. So we knew that we could ask them, where would you go eat?
Yeah.
And that's a handy tip.
Special.
So, yeah.
So what did you eat?
Are planning, if you are planning a meal out, like we actually planned one full meal that would be at a place. I would suggest what I did was I leveraged it towards the end of the trip. So you might be running out of some of the food you packed, or you might be sort of craving like something fresh that wasn't packed in a cooler all week. And so I pushed that towards, I think it was the day before we left. We ate that meal out. And then we got a special treat each day that we were there. One day there's this place that Gary loved the clam chowder when he was growing up. And so we got a big bowl of the clam chowder.
Nice.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. We were kind of worried, but it was good. Another day we all got an ice cream cone at the beach. But honestly, we had actually planned, there was 2 other things we wanted to buy out, but we had brought so much good food and we just liked it better. And we just never went and got it because we were just happy with what we had. So, also the first day we left, this wouldn't be accessible to everyone. I don't even know how it would work for you, Allison. I think it would be impossible. But we planned that the day we left, like we packed up and left here and we were out around 7 a.m. And we did not stop to make breakfast. I didn't get any dishes out in the morning before we left. You know, we didn't wait for any kids to eat. We basically woke them up and told them to get in the car. And that was because I planned that our first stop on the way out, there's a coffee shop that I knew we were going to pass on the way that we all really like. Okay. And so we stopped there, got everybody a sandwich.
Nice.
Gary and I brought our own, like, we had brought beverages. We didn't have to get any beverages or anything like that, but everybody just got a sandwich. So,
can I ask you something about your coolers?
Yeah.
It's just come to me. So you had 3 coolers. Were they electric coolers or did you have cool packs in them to keep them cold?
No, they're not electric. And I'll explain how we kept them cold.
That's coming, is it?
I'm actually put that in.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's good because that was a question, you see. Okay, I'm waiting.
So, Allison, let's take an ad break.
Okay.
And then come right back.
When you bake bread the ancestral way, you soon realise it's not just about what happens in the kitchen that matters. Health and flavour both start in the soil. That's why, for our US listeners, we're recommending Grand Teton Ancient Grains. They are a family-run, organic, regenerative farm located in Idaho that grow ancient grains including spelt, rye, einkorn and emmer, plus heritage varieties of wheat and gluten-free grains. And I can personally verify how workable and delicious they are, having made bread, pizza and pancakes from these grains in my own kitchen. Grand Teton sells freshly milled flours, or if you grind your own grain, you can get the berries. When you buy in bulk, you get free shipping, saving a lot of money. And it's so exciting to receive your order because the product arrives in beautiful paper bags. Check out with free shipping on their website at ancientgrains.com. It's a great way to fill your pantry with a large selection of organic, glyphosate-free ancient grains. So be sure to stock up at ancientgrains.com.
Okay, so the first section I want to talk about here is planning. So planning the food for your trip is, Allison, you have a different take on this. I would say the more people you bring, probably the more you need to plan, because I needed to know. And plus I was bringing all the food. So I needed to know in advance
how much
food am I, like what am I making? Is there things I can make and put in the freezer that I could do, not 2 days before the trip, but I could do like 2 weeks before the trip. There was some stuff I did like a month before the trip. And then I needed to know, how should I tried to put everything in the serving that I was going to be taking out. You know what I mean? So like if there's a pack of something, it was packed, like I packed enough for one dinner so that then I'm not opening multiple packs at a meal. And I also wanted to make sure that I was bringing enough, which I was. I brought too much as usual. And I wanted to know that it would be food that we liked and good food, which I'll talk about what I mean by that a little farther ahead. I used the plan to eat actually to help me prepare because I knew...
You mean, I don't know, some people might not have heard us talk about it before.
Yeah. If you know me in real life, you've probably heard me talk about it.
Yeah.
Apparently I go on about it quite a bit. But I think it's because with my... ADHD type personality, I have just found that it takes a lot of the executive functioning off my plate and I'm able to, do things like get dressed. So I actually I didn't put our trip menu in there, although I think I'll go back and plug it in because you can go back over time and look at things, and so it'd be handy to have that to reference. But what I scheduled was all the food I was prepping. So I wrote out the menu by hand on a tablet, and then I kind of arranged the food how it made sense. And then I got to work in the kitchen because I knew, okay, we need 18 hot dog buns or whatever. And then I made as much of that as I could to freeze. The menu that I wrote out is what I have for the podcast supporters to download.
Okay.
It's just a very simple menu typed out. And so you can kind of get a feel for how I was scoping out the meals. I kind of got this menu idea from my mom because whenever we went on road trips in the RV or the camper or the camper van, depending on what country you're listening to this from, then she would print out this menu and she would actually tape it to the kitchen cupboard. So everybody knew what the meals were. And she didn't do like Sunday morning breakfast is this. She did, here's 5 breakfasts, here's the 5 lunches, and here's the 5 dinners. And then as the trip evolved, we would kind of shift around with that because, maybe we'd be out late one day or go to the pool one day. And so she'd go to the meal that worked for that.
I see.
But everybody could see it and contribute as well, because I could just walk in the little RV and be like, oh, it looks like we're having lunch could be peanut butter sandwiches. I'll just start making those for everybody. And that works out great when you have 8 kids.
Yeah.
So we did not stick to my menu exactly, but it was so handy because I enjoyed the vacation more. I felt like I didn't have to think every day, okay, what are we going to eat? I just looked, oh, look, the luxury of having it all written out and planned for me was right there. Allison, you do it a little bit differently. What do you do for your menu when you're traveling?
Yeah, so, we literally can't take the stuff that you took on your trip. But having said that, I don't plan. I know that you like to menu plan generally. I don't menu plan and I never have menu plan. I think sometimes I think it's easier for me because obviously I've only got 3 mouths to feed. But then I think, if I had 6 mouths to feed, I think I'd probably just do what I do, but double it. I actually quite like the idea of coming up with what we're going to eat. I do plan in the sense, in a normal situation that I will go to the market on a Saturday and I'll think, okay, what roughly do we need this week? And I'll look at what's available and I'll decide what I'm going to choose. Or perhaps I'll say to Albert, oh, have you got any kidneys? Because I've got sort of in my head that I think I might do this dish. But I feel better not being constrained by having a planned menu. I know it means I have to use more of my executive function on that, but I kind of like it. I like thinking, what do I fancy doing tomorrow? What's in the freezer? What's, and so it's something that's just part of my personality. We have our staples, which kind of take that executive functioning off me. And those generally continue when we go on a trip. And those are the foods that are in that case that I said earlier on. So we always take pre-made sourdough bread with us. So, sometimes if it's a long trip, I will actually make a sourdough bread while we're there. But generally, if it's a shorter trip, I will take 1 or 2 sourdough loaves in the case with us. And we generally have that for lunch. Just like everyone hears me talking about what I have for lunch here. It's always with bread, really, isn't it? We generally have oats for breakfast when we're at home. And we often have oats for breakfast when we go travelling as well. And because I've been spoilt with oats, I know that shop-bought oats, porridge oats, kind of taste a bit like cardboard. So we generally take our oats with us. And just like Rob roasts his coffee before we go, we get our naked oats and we roll them in the Mercato Marga before we go and then take them in a bag with us. So that's usually in the case. We take lard with us and usually I just put it in the case from frozen. And then often in the evening, we'll have a lighter grain. So we'll have millet or something a bit lighter, a gluten-free grain. And often I will take a bag of that with me in the case. So, if I know we're going away for 5 days, we've got a 5-day supply of millet there that I can just cook up in the evening.
Yeah.
So I'm not writing a menu, but I've got that structure that's kind of the same as the structure that I would have for us, in our routines of eating every day. And what I don't have, I'll then go out and look for. So if there's a market in the place that we're going, I'll go to it that day. And one of the joys, actually, I think, of travelling is if there's a regular market, then I can get stuff that day, so I'm not just buying once a week more like I do here. I can go and see what's good that day. If there's no market, then I'll go to a shop and I'll buy a few days of the kind of the protein stuff and the veggie stuff in. And then I'll just go about my usual thing. Oh, what do I fancy? Well, I've got ground mince, or I've got these sausages, or the chicken was a better deal, so I bought chicken. Well, we'll roast a chicken. Well, I'll have that leftovers, for the next few days. So, yeah, I don't have a written menu, and I do keep it in my head, but I do have a routine that I kind of fall onto, which gives me kind of a structure and helps me know what I have to choose and what I can just forget about because it's done and there, kind of thing.
Yeah. That works out great.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's people listening to this who I know have to pack because they have severe allergies. Yeah. And sometimes I know that feels very constraining because you don't have a choice, really. And so, but I just want to tell you, I promise that you're getting better food.
Gosh,
it is so sad. It is so sad. I look like when Gary and I were on this most recent trip down the Oregon coast, and I just kept telling him, every restaurant I see, I just know everything in there came off the same frozen food truck from the same factory.
They just heated it up.
And they're microwaving it. They're putting it in toaster ovens. They're frying it in rancid oil. And it's all the same thing. And in fact, we spent quite a bit of time just to see what there was, if there was places that we could eat.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything we even wanted.
That's depressing doing that.
Eat.
Yeah. After a while,
I know.
Rob and I just give up on that.
Talk about an exercise in futility.
Yeah. Don't bother. I get excited. Yeah. Look at this menu. And Rob's like, don't do it. And then I realise why he said it.
I'm going to this place. And I told Gary, it's so discouraging. Actually, the one place we wanted to find and we couldn't find, I don't know if they're still in existence. If anybody in Newport, Oregon knows where this is, if it still exists, please tell me. But when we were on our honeymoon, we went to this restaurant, which was the bottom level of a house. So it was just like you walk up to a house and the bottom level was the restaurant. And it's just a woman and her husband, and he was a French pastry chef. And I don't know exactly what her specialty was, but we went there and we just kind of said, make us whatever is good. And she told us all the places around here, because you're at the beach, everybody sells seafood and it's all frozen and shipped in seafood. And she said, we actually are serving you seafood that's local,
from
local fishermen, and then her husband makes all their pastries from scratch, and everything was wonderful. It was wonderful, and you just felt like you were sitting in a cozy little home setting. There's just a few tables, and it was a nice, comfortable low light, and it was wonderful. If that place exists, we drove around. We tried to find it. We couldn't find it. But if anybody knows where that is, if they're still around 15 years later, please tell me.
That would be like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Coup. One listener comes in and says, I know where it is. And you go back there. Wow.
But it just is discouraging because if you just sit outside a restaurant long enough, you see the big in the U.S., it's called U.S. Foods or Us Foods or Cisco, depending on or Chef's Choice or something, and it's the trucks back up and they just unload pallets of frozen food, and it's all the same thing.
Yeah, in Florence there are still cafes who make their pastries there and then. I think maybe I've talked about this, on site. But most of the little pastry shops that sell coffee and all the Italians have their breakfast at. I remember listening to Katie Parler once on her podcast, and she just said all of those croissants, all of those pain au chocolats, they all come from a factory just outside Rome, and they're delivered to the cafes every day by vans, and they've all got goodness knows what vegetable oils in them. They're not made with all butter kind of things anymore. It's the same pastry from the same place that's come on a refrigerated truck. You know? It's just like, oh.
Well, you think, oh, I'm going to a place. I want to experience something of that place. And then you're going and you're getting, like you're in Florence and you're getting food from Rome, you know?
Yeah.
You're getting all the food from the same big industrial region in Kansas or something for us here. And it's just getting, I told Gary, I feel so discouraged because if I go on a trip here in Oregon, I'm going to see the same restaurants and the same food as if I go on a trip in New York. And I said, why? Like, what's the point? What's the fun? But we've been trained with the processed food to expect the exact same thing all the places all the time and the same texture. And sour cream looks like this. And, you know, a tortilla looks like this. And then if you go somewhere else, God forbid it's different because, that's weird.
Well, yeah, and those companies have the buying power to be able to produce that food at a lower price, and so they can outprice the other people.
So a restaurant,
and who, you know, well, obviously, if it's cheaper, I've got to have it there. So, you know, that's the end of that.
Restaurants' margins are like 4% or something. So it's like they, you know, and if you know, the thing is with eating mostly our own made food, we can then choose to go eat at a place that is far more expensive than if we were trying to feed everybody a bunch of, you know, I don't know, processed food meals every single day. Anyways, I just wanted to give that encouragement to those of you that I know don't really have much of a choice. I suppose technically I do have a choice because technically I'm not allergic to things, but I also feel sick when I eat them and I don't want to. I don't have as big of a reaction as somebody with a true allergy or sensitivity. So I have that luxury of knowing that I have the choice. But honestly, I don't feel like I have the choice because everything's so gross. Okay, so work ahead and freeze is a tip. This is great for camping as well. If you're going tent camping, this is a really good tip. So we made as much food as we could, some of it several weeks in advance, and we froze it. And freezing food is not only a convenient way to spread the work out over time, so you don't have this massive rush right before the trip, but it's a great idea for even things like the hot dogs that you're packing to bring, because since they're frozen, they're going to stay colder longer in your case. So we made and froze packets of cookies, sausages, hot dog buns, hamburger buns, sloppy joe filling, and pre-sliced bread. I sliced the bread. Sorry, Allison. I made the bread and I sliced it. Yeah. How dare you? I know. How dare I? It was spelt bread and it held up tolerably well. But I sliced it and then I used bags to package it an amount that we would use so like, you know, this makes 6 sandwiches or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
I froze it in those sets. And I did 6, even though the baby doesn't eat a sandwich, because sometimes Gary and Jacob will eat another half. So,
yeah,
do you freeze stuff if you're bringing it?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I do kind of the same as you. You know, a couple of weeks before, I'm thinking, right, what do I need to have made to make this work? So usually, you know, a couple of times before, in the weeks leading up to the trip, I'll make 2 sourdough loaves instead of 1. And then the freezer will sort of stock up. And I find that's helpful not only to take, you know, sourdough loaves with me, but also because, you know, when you come back from a trip, it takes quite a lot of energy to unpack, do all the washing, get back to your normal life. And trying to fit making a bread in there is quite hard. So I usually try to leave a couple of loaves in the freezer for when I come back as well. So I'm kind of thinking about it, you know, 2 or 3 weeks before and making extra, double. So I'm not using any extra energy on the oven, you know, and it's efficient in my making. Yeah. And then often we will put those loaves in the case frozen. And then, you know, they're slowly defrosting. We do that with lard. Like I said, the lard that we put in a case is usually frozen when it goes in. And so if we've got a journey that's taking 18 hours, for example, the lard's kind of cold still when we get there. You know, there's no problem with it heating up. So I'm making extra lard, making sure there's a container that is about the right size for the amount of lard we'll use when we're away. So I know that though that container's for when we're going. We're not going to touch that one yet. Yep. The same with kraut. I will make extra kraut to kind of bump up the routine so I can have one to take with me. So yeah, we kind of do the same thing, just on a smaller scale. thinking about it 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, putting things in the freezer, and then making sure that that just fits into the routine and it's ready to pack when you're so busy when you're leaving. You know, have we got this? Have we got this?
Turning off your water.
Turning off the water. Yeah, exactly. And then you can just get them out of the freezer, and that's really great. You know. So yeah, we're the same.
Another tip would be to be realistic. So when you go on your trip, you're not going to suddenly be a new person and want to eat different food that you never eat, that you don't like usually, or that you've been storing in the back of the cupboard and hoping one day you'll be so hungry you'll actually eat it. You're probably not. So my advice would be plan for food that you actually like and want to eat. And I also intentionally chose to plan special and kind of interesting food that we don't always make all the time, so that it was interesting and fun for the kids and it felt like a special event. And
that's nice.
You don't want to be discouraged on your trip and just, you know, I'm so tired of eating peanut butter 3 times a day. Let's just go out somewhere, you know? So it's a fun trip. So plan something fun and interesting and maybe not just have the same soup reheated every single day.
Yeah.
A small cooler. I actually brought a really small cooler. Well, small compared to the other coolers, I'll say that. I brought a small cooler that wasn't actually...
Could I get inside one of your coolers? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, probably.
Isn't that big?
No, let's see. The biggest one holds 8-gallon jars of milk. So,
okay, maybe Gabriel could get in it.
Yeah, Gabriel could get in it for sure.
Yeah, okay.
But don't kids, it's not safe. But we brought a small cooler that wasn't for packing food, so that each day when we left on our adventures, we could bring along a convenient container of lunch and not have lug out a giant thing. This, during the trip, the way we loaded the car, this was the only cooler that was accessible, and that was by my design. I told Gary, we don't need to get into any of the other coolers. Everything we need for the drive, the day down, is in this little cooler. And you don't need snacks and things constantly on a road trip, although I know that that's kind of the mentality, at least in the US, you know, but you don't really. You can get hungry in between your meals and wait till you stop at a park or something to eat. So, sorry.
Shock horror.
And then, depending on your situation, this was something that my sister, who camps quite a bit, told me. She said, I plan a hot breakfast and a hot lunch, or a hot dinner, but for lunch I plan something we don't need to cook, because then it's always portable.
Yeah.
Okay, so cooler economy. This one, shout out to Kara, who bought Elsie the cow from me and Angel the heifer. And she threw this advice at me. She said, freeze some jugs of water to put in your coolers, because we were bringing 5 gallons of raw milk. And we also don't like drinking... We've really boxed ourselves into a corner, Allison. We don't like drinking water anywhere we go.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So the kids won't drink water if we go somewhere. They just think it's gross, and they say it tastes like chemicals, and it does. So I was thinking, well, I want to bring water, but how? And Kara said, freeze it. So those frozen jugs actually stayed cold all the way until the very end, because there was several of them, and we just took them out, you know, and poured what we needed into our bottles, and then it gradually melted by the end. Also, Kara made us a ton of fruit leather from berries and grapes and things that she has grown, and that was such a fun treat. Everybody was so excited about it. The kids could not wait to go on the trip so they could tear into it.
Oh, that's
and
lovely.
So that's a great tip. Have a friend who will make you something yummy to take on the road.
Yeah, that's nice.
How about
That's
your bag,
nice.
Allison?
Yeah, so usually we have a cool bag with us because, you know, we're going to need it on the trip. We're going to need it when we go out on the trip. And it's kind of medium-sized. It has to be, you know, a reasonable size so it can be balanced on top of one of the suitcases, and that it's not so big that it's not too big when we're going out for the day, because we just usually take one with us. And I have to say, every single time we go, it's completely and totally stuffed. And Rob doesn't really go near packing it anymore because he packs it and he says it's full. I'm like, oh, that's not full. Come on. And I take everything out.
I can
Take it all out, put it all back in again. Look, there's loads of room. And then I put a load more stuff in on the top of it, and then I can't quite zip it shut. So it is stuffed every single time. Often we'll do things. So usually we put, the food that we're taking with us that we want to keep lower down in the cool bag, and then we will often put our lunches at the top. And very often, to avoid taking a cool pack, I will put something like, the frozen container of lard in it. And then that's our cool pack. It's the lard melting. So we don't have to use a cool pack because that just takes up tons of room. And I want to put something else in there,
You want food in there.
Exactly. And then our sandwiches and that, if there's room, go on the top. So then when we're on a journey, we can just unzip it, reach in for the stuff for the road. And sometimes it doesn't fit. Sometimes we have to put them in a separate container. But our cool bag is soft. So it's a foldable one. So if there's less in it, which doesn't happen very often, we can squash it down a little bit. And it also is not so weighty if it's soft as well. Yeah. So, it doesn't add to the carrying by being a great big hard thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's interesting, the kind of the parallels but differences between us. We've got a parallel kind of on each of these, but they're slightly different, and yet they work for both of us. We've kind of figured them out as we've gone along for our particular situations. I find that really interesting.
Yeah. And it's interesting how kind of the same driving principles working in the different situations and with the different allowances. We have, a weight tolerance far beyond.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Rob could carry the
test. Yeah, you want to test.
But it is something that reminds me when you say, "Oh, I can't," I have 4 kids, or what, there, it's just up to the creativity of the individual to find how things can be negotiated. Okay, so road packs. This is the last thing I'll say here, and then Alison, let's take a quick break after this, and then just come back with some just a list of menu items. So road packs. You'll see this noted on the menu if you download my printed menu. And this is something that I did for one of the trips when we went to the Young Living Convention, and the kids were still talking about it 3 years later. So I decided to do it again. They're like, "Do you remember? Could you remember when you went on that trip? It was so fun." They're dreaming about it. So this was the only place we had processed food treats that I didn't make. They were store-bought, and thank goodness this is unusual because they were really expensive. Oh. So if you're buying organic, slightly better treats, good gracious, they're expensive. So the kids were really, really excited. It was really novel and fun. I made a bag for each kid. I wrote their name on it, and I wrote the date because there's actually 2 bags, one for the trip out and one for the trip home. And I just kind of hid the other bags in the bottom of one of the boxes. And so nobody knew it was there. And I also made one for the dog, Jacob's dog, who came with us. Jacob cracked up.
He was really excited.
He was. Well, because I handed each kid their bag, and he reads the name and passes it. And then I handed him one for Charlie. He was like, "What?" But I put them in the console of the car. I don't know what you call it in the UK, but it's like the little box in between the driver and passenger.
I don't know what we call that either.
Yeah, the thing. I put them in there, and then when we were a few hours into the drive, a lot of the newness has worn off. Everybody's kind of read through some books, and they're kind of getting glazed-eyed, and the picnic stop was still a ways away. I handed those bags back, and it was very exciting.
Oh, it's like Christmas.
Everybody's thrilled. Yeah. I also put a bag of trail mix and a bag of jerky in the console, but we never used it. Honestly, when you have really good meals, you just don't feel like you want to snack as much because your body is staying sated and full, and you're getting all the nutrients you need. I'm telling myself all these things because when I'm at home, I do a less good job of making sure I eat meals on time. But we never used the snacks that we packed, but for Gary and I, but they were there. Alison, when you go on your long train rides, you did say, other than chocolate frogs and the Bertie Bott's butter beans or whatever the heck they're called. What do you guys eat? Or do you bring things?
We do bring things. And, often we're on trains for a long time for UK residents, So when we lived in Cornwall, the train ride from Rob's mum to Cornwall was 9 hours. And, we took the train once from Florence all the way back to Kent in the UK. So we've done long train drives.
How long was that?
Train rides. That was, I think it was 2 days, actually. We stopped in Geneva overnight. A long time. Often we take the slow train because they're cheaper than the fast train, so we're kind of used to that. We're completely at home with being on a long train journey. And like I said, I pack the stuff we need on the top of the cool pack, or if I can't fit it in a separate accessible bag. If we have to go to a separate bag, then I've got no way of cooling it necessarily. So I'll do stuff that, like your friend was saying, the stuff that is not hot. So I will choose something that specifically I know does not need cooling. So I'll do sandwiches with cheese in them.
Yeah.
If I know I've got a way to cool it, then I know I can put fish or egg in those, instead. Sometimes we've got things left in the fridge that we just haven't managed to eat before the trip. We always have leftovers in the fridge all the time.
So
and we're
did we.
I try and manage it, but sometimes there are some left. And those, basically, maybe there's a bit of rice or some salad or some roasted veg, a bit of chicken or something. And those I will just put in a container, and then we'll take wooden forks with us. And like I said, that container always comes in handy later on the trip. We often have water kefir left over. And so then rather than have it in a glass swing top bottle, we decant that into a plastic bottle. And then that becomes the drink for the trip for the boys. So we're just carrying around that until they finish the water kefir. Sometimes I will pack some nuts and a bit of chocolate. So that kind of is the equivalent of your snack packs, and we'll get to some place where we're changing or we're on a particularly long leg of the journey and, we're flagging a little bit. And then I'll put my hand in some secret pocket in the case and pull out some...
Everybody's eyes light up.
Hazelnuts and a bit of chocolate. And everyone's like, ooh. Yeah. And so we'll have that. That's
Why
often...
does it... It's such an odd boost. Like it's...
Yes.
And I think it's...
Treat,
I think it's fun because it's not been perpetual. It's not like you've been just eating chocolate the whole way. It's like now you get this burst of something. So
yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love it. I want to go on a 2-day train ride from Italy to Kent. Sounds so romantic.
It was lovely.
Let's go to an ad break and come right back.
Do you love oats? Want to try your hand at a traditional Scottish oat fermentation? Suans is just that. It was made in Scotland for centuries and will give you both a creamy, easy-to-digest porridge and a tangy probiotic drink. My video course, Suans, the Scottish Oat Ferment, over at the Fermentation School, will guide you through everything you need to know to create these two ancestral foods in your own kitchen, no matter what equipment you have. Head to ancestralkitchen.com/Suans, ancestralkitchen.com/Suans, SOWANS, or click the link in the show notes to get a 10% discount automatically applied.
Okay, so this is where I want to talk a little bit about the actual food we pack, and then this will wrap us up. Mm-hmm. So this is shorter section, but if you've ever heard of a capsule wardrobe, I realized that when we travel, we kind of make a capsule menu or a capsule pantry. In fact, Allison, I was thinking of your pantry as written out in our cookbook, Meals at the Ancestral Hearth. Please buy it. It's on our website. Mm-hmm. And your pantry is actually the direction that my pantry has been moving, as a lot of my variety little bits of things I've used up. I'm not replacing them. I'm actually getting a little bit more focused on fewer ingredients. But using those fewer ingredients in diverse ways, of course, is something you and I both enjoy. And when I looked at the food for the trip, I thought, what things could be layered or mixed and matched? For instance, I also was keeping in mind the fact that, well, Gary eats anything that I throw at him, and I can literally, him and Rob, they're two of a kind. I could really just throw like 5 different leftovers in a container and put a lid on it, and he'll take it to work and eat it without complaining. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know. Or if like the kids have a little leftover on all the plates, he's like, just put it all in a container and I'll take it for work tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. You know how it is. Yeah. So while that is true, I didn't want to push the limits of that patience and make the same thing every single day. And I wanted it to feel like a fun trip. So we had different sandwiches on different days. But the thing being that there's a lot of overlap that you can put there. So, bread works in all of those, or buns. So whichever, if I had one or the other left over, I could still use it to make the next day sandwiches. And it wasn't like every meal needed all this exclusive equipment and ingredients. It was all very much layered over. Like I made a couple salads that we just divided up over different days, and they, kind of mixed and matched, and it was whatever was left in one container we finished off, or what have you. My sister also suggested, she said when they travel, instead of sandwiches, she actually almost always does wraps, because she can flatten tortillas down, or flatbreads, and they don't lose their joy by being flattened. Yeah. So Allison, first, why don't you've already said actually quite a few things, but what are some of your favorite food items to pack, just so we get it cataloged nicely at the end here?
Yeah, I just feel like I have to have that bread because, it's a loaf and I've got a knife that I'm cutting it with, and that is just a staple for us, and it travels so well. It's just a loaf of bread. It's not going to get squished, really. It's not one of those ones that's like massively like a big balloon thing. So it's not going to get squished. And, then I can make sandwiches with it for the whole week. I don't have to worry about that at all. And the same with the lard. I don't have to worry about, what can I get butter? Where can I get butter from? What fat can I get? There's all these just horrible fats and everything. If I've got my bread and I've got my lard, I feel like I can do anything, I think.
Well, that's true. And if you are traveling very lightly with bread and lard, depending on the time and where you're going, you could look in advance and see. There was no market where we went. I did look, but or at the time we were there wasn't anyways. But if there's a good market, you could buy a piece of meat and you could buy some vegetables and have fresh food. Yeah. Okay, so meat. Freeze your meat, pack it on the bottom of the cooler. This is good for camping. This is good for road trips. Whether the meat's cooked or not. I cooked all our meat before we left, but I still froze it after I cooked it. Okay. Hot dogs and buns. I'm just going to list a few things, Allison. When I was working on the trip, I wrote out a bunch of things that I thought would be packable. And then I pulled from there based on what we actually had to make. And some of these things we've taken on trips, and some my sister contributed because she also helped me with this list. So hot dogs or sausages and buns, canned pork and beans, and canned refried beans. I put the recipes for those in the show notes because I made those for the trip. Fish and veg packets. If you're cooking over a fire, you can pre-parboil the potatoes before you go on your trip. And you could do sausages too. Chicken salad, tuna, mackerel, sardine salad, egg salad, turkey salad. Egg salad, I don't know if, I just heard in Australia they call it something different, but it's like the chopped up eggs with mayonnaise and mustard and lemon juice and relish and stuff like that. Any kind of a meat salad. Chopped veggie salad, broccoli salad, pasta salads, smoked salmon salad, oatmeal breakfast, oatmeal scones. My sister shared a recipe with me, which is in the show notes.
Thank you. That's nice.
Where it's actually from a cookbook that is linked in there. If you travel and camp a lot, you would really enjoy this book. I've looked through it, and they have recipes where, if you're in your kitchen at home, you can make it in your oven this way. Or if you're traveling, mix these ingredients, bring these ingredients, and then when you get there, here's how you cook it on a fire. So it's got some diversity in there. Sloppy joes, bratwurst, and pulled pork are good meats that you can cook in advance and freeze in containers. Make your lunches portable, and if you want a sweet treat after lunch, then that would be a good time to see if there's something fun, like the ice cream cones we got. Bagels. I thought about making some for the trip. I didn't end up doing it, which is fine because Allison, I told everybody,
Always
your
bagels.
job on this trip is to eat food, because I could already see as soon as we left that we weren't going to eat it all.
Eat now more.
Eat more. You're hungry? I don't think so. Cream cheese and salmon. If you have access to those things, that goes good with bagels. Bread is good for cheese sandwiches, the tuna sandwiches, peanut butter sandwiches, etc. Wraps versus bread for sandwiches, since, like Rebecca said, you can flatten the tortillas down. Frozen jugs of water. And if you are going to be going out and about, maybe think about bringing some water bottles so you don't have to buy plastic ones with nasty water. Snacks. We brought cookies and fruit leather for little desserts or sweet treats. And the fruit leather was amazing. I would definitely recommend that for trips now that I've taken it on a trip. So, pro tip, take fruit leather. And when you plan your menus, Allison, you kind of alluded to this when you talked about traveling home, but think about the leftovers. So if you have a potato hash on the third day of your trip, then you can use up the bits of egg and meat and cheese from day 1 and 2 that
Stir it
were
all
not
in.
quite finished off. Yeah, you just mix it in. And then on day 4, if you have any of that hash with all the leftover bits in it left over again, you can roll it into a tortilla with leftover sloppy joes and rice or something. So I didn't get way nitty gritty, but when you have a good capsule wardrobe and the food or the clothes are high quality and they're kind of the colors you like and they all fit you, then you can mix and match them pretty effortlessly.
Absolutely.
And the same with the food. When the food is all really good and it's things that you're accustomed to and you like and they taste nice, they tend to mix and match pretty well. So that is the
So I
end.
have 2 questions for you still.
Okay.
Before we go, is there time for me to ask my 2 questions?
Well, how fast
think-
are they and how long are the questions? Let's try.
The first one's quite quick. The first one is, will you take me on a trip somewhere, please? Because I'd like to eat all that food.
Yeah, sure can.
Excellent. The second one is, I still don't quite understand about the cool pack situation. So when you get to the place, you've got all this frozen meat in the cool packs. Was there a freezer that was big enough to put it all in? Or did you just take your cool packs out and freeze those again and then keep storing it in the cool pack thing? If you see what I mean?
So the jugs of water, being large, stayed frozen.
All the way. Okay.
Till the very end, till the last
wow,
day.
really?
There was ice.
To the last day of the trip?
in the last one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So obviously they were getting smaller and smaller because I was using them.
Yeah.
And then I also angled that we used the stuff that would be the worst the first.
Okay.
There was a mini fridge where we got to. So I unloaded one of the coolers into it, but I really don't think I would have needed to because the cool pack stayed, or the jugs stayed frozen because they're so
Wow.
big.
Yeah.
And they were packed tightly. I had everything wedged in. And then I was the only one who opened it. And if anybody was getting anything out, I was like, hurry, 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 hurry.
Yeah, shove it in, shove it in. Yeah.
Pandora's box.
Emergency.
They're flying out.
So now
that
I
helped.
get it. That the water was staying frozen. Okay. So my little tip to add to that is if you don't have massive bottles of water, or if you have a smaller situation like we do, what we have done sometimes is if on the way home we haven't taken, a professional cool pack thing to put in the case, in the cool bag, because we used a block of lard or something, and then we've eaten all that lard, but we want to take food back with us in the same cool bag. Sometimes what we will do is just go somewhere and buy a bag of frozen peas.
Oh, genius.
Simple. Put that in the cool bag. And then when we get home, we've got all the food still cold, and then we've got some peas ready to eat too.
When I was having Kenton, I did the same thing I did with the other babies. I bought frozen peas for ice packs, right? You want to have ice packs on hand.
Yeah.
And I bought like the cheapest ones because I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to use these after I spit on my butt, right?
Yeah.
And Gary was like, well, you should get like the good peas. Why would you even buy, don't contribute to the
Exactly.
to
them and their stupid food systems.
Like, I didn't think about that, and then I never used them as ice packs. And then I felt really dumb. I was like, I fed them to the chickens, but
I could have had good
thought,
peas.
I should have bought real peas, but oh well.
Yeah, it just means you've got to eat a lot of peas when you get back, because generally they're defrosted at that point, and then you've got like peas for the next 3 days. But that's all right.
Now, this is on the printed menu if anybody downloads the menu. So you'll see it there. But Allison, something to alluding back to what you said with your bread that you freeze before you go. I planned the dinner for the night we got back and the next day because I knew it would be, well, like you said, you get back from a trip and, we have animals and batteries and things we have to check on. And, it's all the unpacking and washing and hanging things up and stuff like that. So I planned the dinners now, and I actually had a frozen dinner ready for us. We didn't end up using it because we still brought home leftovers.
Okay, yeah.
So then I was frying up the bread, because stale bread, when you fry it's actually pretty good.
Yummy.
So I was toasting that on the stove and heating up leftover meat, and we had cheese still and things like that. So we didn't have to worry about it. But I was planning, because do remember when you come home from the trip, when you're thinking about a trip, you think about yourself and you love yourself on that trip. And you're like, yes, she's going to have so much fun and I want her to have a good time and see all the sights. Well, love the you that's coming home also. Yeah. Be kind to her too. In
Good
fact,
advice.
be even nicer to her, because she'll be really tired. So that's my advice for the very end of the trip. And that is all I have for you on travel food.
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you ever so much. Really good episode. I'm glad. And it seems quite apt, because it is June. And so this will be great for this summer, but also great for future summers as well.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Most definitely. Well, Allison, until next time.
Yeah, goodbye for now.
Bye.
If you'd like to support the podcast, you can join as a patron. Choose from various levels starting at $5. You can see what we offer at ancestralkitchenpodcast.com.
While you're there, check out our favourite books, supplements and kitchenware, or give a one-time donation.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
And if you know someone who would love our show, tell them about us.
You are helping to bring ancestral food wisdom into modern kitchens, changing the world one plate at a time.